In this lesson, we're going to learn how to declare variables and assign data to them. Variables are very important in your programs, as those are the objects that hold data as we're processing it in one form or the other. So let's get right to it. We're going to start a new project. Let's cancel and do that again. There we go. Let's call it variables. And let's create a new class. We'll call it variables, or we'll call it variable. How's that? Let's open it up in the editor. And again, we have this very long, drawn out set of code. Let's just delete all of it. Oops, we didn't quite get rid of everything. There we go. And we're going to create one method, public static, void main. Let's get our brackets in place already. There we go. Whoops. Having a little trouble typing today for some reason. Try that again. There we go. So a variable is always matched with a data type. And so we'll also be talking about the primary data types that we're going to be using in this course also. Let's start with the simplest example. Let's start with a number. In this case, a whole number. And that data type is int. And to declare a variable of that type, we write int space number semicolon, which says I want to reserve a place in memory named number to store an integer value. That's exactly what you're saying when you declare a variable. Let me also write a comment here. We'll talk more about comments later. Just to demonstrate or to write out that that's a variable declaration for an integer value. If we're trying to store a floating point number, such as 3.14y, I'm sorry, 3.14159, we write double and then the name of the variable. So our two main numeric data types are int and double. If we need other ones, we'll talk about them as they come along. The third primary data type that we're going to use is string. And string is used to store data that's more of text-based, like somebody's name or an address, things like that. So these three lines demonstrate three examples of variable declarations. Once a variable is declared, then we can assign data to it like that. We'll call that a variable assignment statement. So notice the parts. We have the variable name followed by the equal sign, which is the assignment operator, and the value 100, which is actually an integer literal. So when you read this, you'll be tempted to say number equals 100, and that's really not what's going on here. What you really should say is number is assigned the value 100, because remember, we're not testing equality here, we're assigning a value. We'll do the same thing with pi and with name. So those are the assignment statements to assign data into a variable after it's been declared. We can also declare a variable and assign it a value at the same time. like that. So notice we have both a declaration and an assignment. We're declaring salary as an integer variable, and we're assigning it the value 40,000. Another example. Using a string, again, we declare first as a string variable and assign it the value Barbara. Now let's go ahead and compile these just to make sure we don't have any problems with our compilation, and we don't. Class compiled, no syntax errors. So we can move on. Last thing I want to talk about is using variables, and we use a variable by just referencing its name. So like if I want to write out the value of number, I can do something like this. And that should print the value 100. Let's just do it for all of them. And then finally, well, not all of them, the first three. So let's compile that program. And then let's run it by typing close and then right click and execute main. So there's my value for number 100, 3.14159 for pi, and Jennifer for name. Let's go back to the editor. We can also use variables to assign values to other variables. Whoops. So here I'm declaring a variable sum, and I'm assigning it the value that's stored in number plus 2. So what happens when the compiler executes the statement, it goes and looks for the value in number, finds it 100, adds 2 to that to get 102, and then assigns that value into sum. We can verify that. By writing out the value of sum. So let's compile, and then close, and then execute main, and that's 102. So those are the primary uses, or a good introduction to the primary uses of variables. You'll see us use variables in other ways, and you'll mostly just be able to pick it up as we use them, but when certain usage comes up, I'll be sure to point out anything that might seem strange or different from what I've already discussed here in this lesson.